I don't even have an idea, I just have to put this on in 8 weeks. Hi, I'm Lauren. I've written 2 plays in the past 2 years, both of which I directed and put on stage. I've also just recently written my first fantasy novel, which I'm sending out to agents as we speak. But this video is a little bit not what I planned. I made my first YouTube video a couple of weeks ago talking about how I'm seeking representation for this novel, and that's the focus of the rest of the year. Except then I got a bursary from the lovely people behind Phantom Peak, from Ludens Theatre. I think it's Ludens something. It's Ludens Immersive Theatre Production. I'll put their actual name here, hopefully, if I remember to edit that. With the amazing Danny Romeo, who was kind of one of the minds behind Phantom Peak, which is a big immersive theatre production in London. And so in 8 weeks, 7 weeks now, I am putting on an immersive theatre play, which is interactive, which I have not written yet. So it's going really well. But for now, let's rewind back. I'm currently in week 3. I'm going to be thinking back and looking back over weeks 1, 2, and 3 in preparation for week 4, talking you through how I'm going to do this in the hopes that towards the end I can actually invite you and you can come and see some of my work if you would like to do that. Great. Okay, let's get into it. So, week 1, I will preface this with saying I'm not a Londoner. I don't live in London, but the production, like everything to do with the production and the setup, is based in London, so I'm learning from these people every week on a Monday. I've had nothing but problems with travelling down there, so I live around the corner from a train station, which is fantastic. I have been at least 10 minutes late to basically every production. It doesn't seem to matter what I do. In week 1, I believe there were strikes or problems with the train drivers, so I was half an hour late. And in week 3, there was a whole other problem that I will get into at week 3. Anyway, I showed up half an hour late, which is not what you want when you're meeting people who've given you a bursary, and I kind of walked in the door very apologetic, but there's not really much you can do. So I met Danny, who's running the workshop, and there's 6 other people, I believe it's 6, who are also putting on theatre productions at the same time as me, and so we'll be doing like a small theatre showcase in Theatre Delhi in London, which is next to the Gherkin, if you know the Gherkin, hopefully you do. So very central London, very high profile, very much not my history at all, so I feel very blessed to be a part of it. But yeah, I met the team, I had a lovely time, they all seemed like lovely people, very London focused. I think there's one other person who's from something like Colchester, but yeah, I understand why people live in London. It seems like all the opportunities are there, and so we have a group chat, and I've had nothing but, oh, there's this festival on, apply for this. Oh, there's this bursary, apply for that. Not what I'm used to living up north. I live in Nottinghamshire, and it's just not there, which is very sad, but it's nice to see what else is out there that I potentially might be able to travel to, so that's great. So in the first week, we talked about the scope of the show, so how it's going to work, how much space we have. Basically, the idea is I want to limit the production to be in one room at absolute maximum. The reason for that is once the showcase is done, so at the end of the 10 weeks, I want to be able to take this show to Nottingham or to Leicester or some other East Mid city and be able to put it on a very low budget so that hopefully people can come and see it. The ticket's not going to be expensive. I can put on lots of shows that people can see, and that's actually going to be hopefully a setup for a theatre company or production or that kind of thing. And so we have a little bit more than one room of space in Theatre Delhi, but I'm putting the limit on myself that it has to be at least one room. It has to be one room at absolute maximum. The main other part that Danny, the workshop runner, is focused on is the fact that it has to be immersive. And we talked a lot about the definition of immersive. If you think of War of the Worlds in London, if you think of Phantom Peak, you might think that immersive is just, the setting looking really impressive, or that feeling when you walk in and the music surrounding you. Yeah, it's actually a little bit more than that. So with immersive theatre, there has to be an element of interactivity. So that's the idea that the audience influence what actually happens in the play. That means that I can't just script the play like I normally would. I can't just write a script and all the actors do it, because how the audience interact with the play means that it's going to change. And so that was really fascinating to learn, but also slightly overwhelming because immediately in week 1 I'm thinking, well, I can't just approach this how I'd approach any other theatre production that I've done in the past. So exciting but nerve-wracking. And so I walked away from week 1 thinking this is going to be a lot different to what I've usually done. And also I work like a 9 to 5. So at the same time I was trying to think, okay, I have to be down in London 7 till 9 every week on top of all the extra things I'm going to have to do for this play. How am I going to do this? Which I'm still working out now, but doing my best. Week 2, we'll have a little side panel. Week 2 was very different. I'll preface that now. Week 2 was very much focusing on acting rather than scripting. The first thing at week 2 that stood out to me, Danny explained that we will be acting in our own performances. or the other members of the team will be acting in our performances. Now, I don't act. If you can tell anything from this video, I have no stage presence. I just don't have whatever it is that actors have, and I'm so impressed by. Like, anytime I've had to do interviews or anything from my theatre productions, they've cut about 95% of what I've said. I just don't have that skill. So, this is a bit nerve-wracking for me. It's very out of my comfort zone. I'm gonna do it. It's gonna be fine. But I'm gonna be not having a great time. But anyway, so we did some improv exercises, basically to learn the idea of if an audience member says X, how do you know what to say Y? And so we did the typical improv of like yes and or no but, and so we're going around the circle and saying, we did this one exercise where it was like, one person has to come up with a crazy theory and you have to yes and or no but it, basically. And so someone would say, do you know the government is spying on us with pigeons? And you'd have to go, yeah, and did you know that they're uploading it to YouTube and making loads of money off it? No, that's not true. Actually, pigeons are aliens, and that kind of thing. Just to learn to think quick on the fly and fill in those gaps whenever audience members say anything. And so the idea with improv is the worst thing that you can say is no. If you say no and don't offer up any kind of alternative, that's kind of the worst thing you can do with improv. And so I learned a lot, but yeah, standing up in front of the rest of the peers in this group and acting, definitely not something that I'm comfortable with, but I'm gonna have to get to grips with it, so it's fine. We did this other acting exercise, which I think is fascinating. And so the idea is that someone in the group comes up with something that's a genuine problem in their life, and you act out a scenario. So I think the one in the group was like, my window keeps leaking on me when I'm trying to sleep, and it's really annoying, but it's really hot, so I can't keep my window shut because it was really hot in England at the time that we were doing this. And so I acted with one of the peers, and we were going through and basically saying, oh, could you sleep in my room? And then people would tap you on the shoulder and say, actually, I've got a better idea for this scenario, and swap in with you and say what they would do in that scenario. And by the end of it, we actually had an actionable scenario that she could do and then take forward to kind of edit, like change her own life to be easier. I thought that was fascinating, the idea that someone could just, by through acting through that, you had an idea of what would actually make your life better. I think that was one of the main takeaways from that improv exercise for me. I was thinking, okay, how can this interactive kind of element interact people's own lives, and how can they take that home with them? Yeah, so we kind of got the gears turning in my brain of what do I want this show to do and feel and make an impact on. The main thing that I think of when scripting shows is, what is this going to make audiences think, and how is that then going to affect them when they go home? Like, are they going to look at a situation slightly differently based on what we've gone through? Because that's always the goal with theatre. In my brain, I want to change how people are thinking about something that they've preconceived, or change people's lives in the way that they think about things fundamentally. And at the end of week 2, Danny says, great, time for pitches. So come to me next week with a pitch. We want all pitches to be nailed down. You need to be working on an idea by week 5, which I absolutely agree with. So I've put on a theatre production in 3 weeks in the past, but I already had the script going by week 1. Like, I had a script, I had the cast, I had everything ready to go by week 1. Any less than that, it's going to be a nightmare. So yeah, slight panic at trying to come up with a pitch when we haven't really talked about any immersive, any interactive elements in terms of gaming. Because personally, I've been to Phantom Peak, I've been to similar interactive experiences, like things like puzzle rooms. There's normally a gaming aspect, and trying to script an idea and pitch that without having gone through the game mechanics was a little bit tricky for me. And so Danny's suggestion was go look at board games, go look at things like Critical Role with the D&D aspect, and think, okay, if I was a DM, what are the games that I would give these people that would interact with narrative, and try and pitch it that way. Very difficult. I've spent days looking into this to try and pitch it. But yeah, week 2, improv, come up with a pitch. Good luck. Week 3, hopefully there's a funky little title card while I'm speaking. I worked really hard on my idea between week 2 and week 3. And so I came up with a pitch deck, and I was thinking, I had a couple of ideas, but my main one was about a waiting room in hell. So a waiting room, kind of like purgatory, because I'm thinking that's definitely one room. All I need is a doorway for people to come in and a doorway for people to go out. And I watched a really good presentation by, I think it's Immersive Theatre Live, something like that. I'll link it in the description, but it was really helpful in terms of plotting an immersive show. Rather than scripting an entire script, you're more looking at kind of plotting 8 narrative points and structuring how the audience is going to interact with that. I'll make a separate video about plotting for immersive theatre if people are interested in that, because I found it really, really helpful to have it in a video format rather than read it. So let me know in the comments if that's something people are interested in. I was really late for week 3 because unfortunately someone was hit by a train in the UK between Stevenage and London, which is a really heavily used train line. So I was 2 hours late despite leaving 2 hours early. So that kind of gives you an idea of how much that slowed me down. So unfortunately I missed a lot of the workshop. Luckily I learned a lot. Basically the workshop was focusing on Brechtian theatre, so more focused on gesturing and kind of subtle ways to use theatre without explicitly saying what you mean. I studied Brecht at university. I don't like him, I don't particularly like his work, so I wasn't too worried about missing the workshop. I still did a load of acting exercises with everybody, which I'm still finding difficult to get used to. I'm quite a self-conscious person. It's just not something that I feel comfortable with. And so part of like doing these videos is to try and make it so that I'm less nervous of putting myself out there. So hopefully that will help, I don't know, but we'll see. But anyway, so I was really late, but I managed to pitch my idea at the end of the kind of 2-3 hours that we had together. And so kind of in front of the peers, I was going through and saying, I think that my idea is, basically I think it's a waiting room in hell, and I want people to debate. I basically want to use poker chips to assign values to good things and values to negative things, but focus on things very debated in modern life. So I want to assign positive and negative traits to things in people's lives that are modern traits. So veganism, is it good or bad? Being on benefits, being a single parent, working part-time instead of full-time, being an influencer. Like, I want to, basically my plan is to assign these traits and have people debate them and have a bait and switch where they think they're assigning who's going to go to heaven, and then actually they realise they don't have the ability to do that, and now they have to argue which of them is going to go to hell. And so I want to use a combination of kind of poker mechanics and liar's dice, which is the scene in Pirates of the Caribbean. But rather than have numbers on the dice, I want to have traits that we've debated. So I want to give each trait one of the 7 deadly sins and have those reflected on the dice. So the dice aren't your typical numbers, but they have sloth or lust or pride on them. And so as people talk to each other and get to know each other more, they're going to be better at the games against one another, because they're going to know, okay, you're a really greedy person, so you're going to have more dice that have greed on them, and that kind of thing. Once the pitch was done, Danny said I need to talk more about how the audience are going to be assigned the traits at the beginning. I wanted to assign it randomly, but obviously we talked about the fact of, if you don't believe benefits are good, you're not going to argue towards that, even if your character would benefit from benefits being assigned a good trait. And so we talked about that and how that would actually work. I also submitted the idea to the Collab Sidestep Festival, so they're partners with Danny's theatre company, and basically they would be giving box office revenue if I was able to get the show ready in time for the early September. So if that gets approved, then I'll make a video about that and how I'm going to approach that, because rather than making a theatre show in 10 weeks, I would be doing one in 6 weeks. So we'll see how that goes. So yeah, that's basically how it's going. I'm going to keep editing this idea and I'll make more videos as I do that. Well, for week 4, we're going to focus more on acting, so wish me luck for that. And I'll keep you up to date with how it's going. But yeah, for now, my next video will be about editing tips for the book, because that was what I'd originally planned to do. But yeah, until then, until that video comes out, thanks so much for watching. Yeah, subscribe for more stuff about writing and more stuff about theatre production. I'm going to go move my car before someone in a BMW again comes and shouts at me. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!